Well, as we're here, I wanted to talk about your book, Design Language.
Uh-huh.
I was always wondering why you wrote that book. I mean, it's compared to like jewelry books and,
Yeah.
everything else you
Yeah.
did.
Well, I'm glad you asked because it is different. I've written other books. When I wrote this, I was teaching a design class at the Maine College of Art in Portland, Maine. And it was a new class for me to teach, and I started by examining the literature, which is kind of what you do. What else is out there? Is there a book that I could recommend to my students or have required, for the course? And what I found, there are lots of good books on design. They tend to come from a specific area, and maybe they were a graphic designer or they were a painter or whatever, and they had that vision. It wasn't relevant for me or for my students, and so I thought I can't teach somebody else's course. It'd be like me trying to tell a joke that a professional comedian tells it. It would not work. It has to be sincere. That made me think I need to come up with something different.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went through it the first time, I thought, wow, it's different than anything else you did. Also, in a sense where there is a lot of definitions and zero drawings.
Yeah.
Coming from you, I find like that was very surprising.
Well, and that's great. That's so perceptive because that's exactly the point. Because when I do a drawing, it's my drawing. If I say
you don't want to influence.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly. And so that's kind of the idea. And the other thing, if you look at the page design, every page is different. And while there is a structure, it is what I would call non-hierarchical. Traditionally in a book, it's like here's the title, subtitle, and introductory paragraph, and so on. And this one, it kind of splashes in your face, right?
Yeah.
Every one is a little different. Every page is a little different. So I chose 100 words that seem to come up a lot when we're talking about design. And then in each case, we see the dictionary definition of that word and the etymology, which I find useful sometimes, where
Yes.
that word comes from, what are the origins, the roots of that word. And then some personal observations. For instance, just randomly I'll select the word edge, for instance, and I think, this comes up in design. You have an edge. We have an edge to a drawing. We have an edge to an object, and so on. And I think, what do I know about edges? I think, well, we use the term edgy. Edgy means kind of animated. I'm feeling a little edgy after that experience. For instance, edge is when you think of the edge of a crowd, it's somewhat, again, ambivalent. I'm not part of the throng. I'm going to sit back on the edge. And while I'm thinking of those thoughts, maybe that affects. So I'm doing a drawing, dealing with edges, and so maybe the way that drawing comes out has something to do with those thoughts, or somehow influenced by that. I'm sitting on the edge. I'm not getting to the middle.
I like the little quotes everywhere also.
Yeah.
I think that's a bonus because it comes from outside.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And some of the books tend to be didactic. Let me show you what good design is.
Oh yeah.
Good design is it's way too personal. Trying to say, there's a right way and a wrong way, because I don't think there is a right way and a wrong way.
I think knowing you, it's funny because the size is different also.
Yeah.
But it's totally you, like small little bracelets. It fits you.
Well, thank you. It's a good story about that too, because literally I looked around and I looked at they were all wearing jeans, and I looked at their back pocket. That's what they had, and the way I often do with the book is. The size it's a physical object to me, almost early on, one of the first steps. So I often buy a notebook or a blank book or something like that, and then I start cutting it up with a saw. I mean, I literally cut it up, and so I had a little blank book, and I cut it off, and it was getting closer but not right, and I cut it again, and it wasn't quite right, and I cut it again, and I set it aside, a day or a week in between every time I pull it out. Look, maybe not. And then, so it'd been on the shelf for a while, and I kind of felt like that was the right size. And then I thought, design. I was doing research and came across the perfect mean, right?
The circle.
That one.
I forgot the name. The spiral thing, and it divides everything.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so I had this sample, and I measured it, and it was exactly that. Which is just what it says. Like that shape feels good to us, human beings.
Yeah.
And there it was, and I had gotten to it entirely intuitively.
Any story about the cover?
Isn't that gorgeous? That is actually a section of a painting by a good friend of mine, Lissa Hunter. With her permission, of course, I used I use that because it's about language.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.